You're listening to The Morning Show, streamed by clicking the WHOW live icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. My guest on the phone, Dr. David Mauser, Superintendent of Tri-Valley Schools. Dr. Mauser, a good morning to you, sir. How are you today?
I'm great, Seth. How are you?
Doing good. And I don't want to embarrass you or anything, but I know your son is at the state finals wrestling meet today. That is really exciting. Congratulations to him, and best of luck with his matches today.
Oh, yeah. So you embarrassed me. Are you kidding me? I want to tell everybody. It's exciting. It's one of those proud dad moments. And so we came over this morning hoping to beat the weather, and we'll see what it does. And regardless, they're gonna wrestle inside State Farm Center today, and I'm excited to watch it.
Now, what's is this a team match, or is this individuals? And what class is he wrestling in? Tell us about his day.
Yes, this is the individual state tournament. He's in the 106-pound weight class, but he only weighs about 95 pounds. He's a freshman, and so for him to advance through is kind of one of those deals where it's been a really special year. And last week at sectionals, he punched his ticket. That was an exciting moment, and we're proud of his coaches. We co-op with Leroy, so it's Leroy and Tri-Valley. So we have 4 students represented over here today, and I'm just excited to represent Tri-Valley administration over here supporting these kids regardless of the weather. They've worked really hard. They always say blood, sweat, and tears, right? And that's definitely the part of what's gone on to get these kids over here. And there's a lot of kids over here today, so it should be fun. Awesome.
Well, enjoy the experience, and we appreciate you making time for us on what's I'm sure to be a busy day for you. And Dr. Mauser, to not shift away from all the fun you're going to have today and the enjoyment of it all to things that have really stressed you out over the last few weeks. But of course, the mask discussion in Illinois. I mean, I feel like it might just be as intense now as it has ever been. And that goes back to the summer months when a lot of school districts felt they were going to have autonomy to make their own policies, and then at the last minute the governor and his administration stepped in and reversed course on that. I don't know how you feel. Do you think that's a fair statement, Dr. Mauser? Like the conversation is as intense now as it's ever been?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's people are done, and I get it. I mean, we had a meeting yesterday, an administrative meeting. We just sort of sat and reflected over what we've been through since March of 2020, and all the different, protocols and changes and updates to the guidance that we're provided. And it's been really challenging. And, what's been the most frustrating is when the updates come out on Friday afternoon, after 5 o'clock, and then they're expected to be put in place on Monday. And that's happened to us so many times. It's just not fair. I don't think it's a fair expectation of schools. And, our communities have been great, but at some point, something's got to give, right? And I think that's what you see is you just see parents that are done. And I think some teachers that are finished with it. And obviously it's frustrating for everybody. And, our goal has always been to keep kids safe. We want to keep kids in school. We want to do the right things for our kids in our community. But this has been, without a doubt, the most challenging time that I've ever had in administration, in the past, I guess it's been 15 years that I've been an administrator. So it's just, it's been challenging. And so, today we expect, I believe, an appellate court decision, and we'll see where that lands. But I think in a lot of ways, I want to say that I read yesterday, I think it's 500 schools in the state have already gone mass optional. And I don't know how you put that back in the bag.
Yeah, it's like taking toothpaste out of the tube a little bit. But Dr. Mauser, where are Tri-Valley schools with all of this? I mean, I'm sure most everyone listening this morning is aware of the events that have transpired. You had a Sangamon County judge rule in favor of school districts that were suing for mask optional or for the mask mandate to be lifted. Of course, that ruling basically said, okay, this applies to those school districts. But then at the end of her determination, basically said schools across the state, should have the autonomy to do what they want. You saw the JCAR ruling earlier this week where they were not going to back the governor in continuing his mandates. So that's just kind of the brief overview of the whole thing. We'll dive into a few of those things more in a minute. But where do Tri-Valley schools stand with all of this? What have you done in the last few weeks?
Yeah, we're mask optional. I will say that was announced on Friday afternoon, after 5:30 in the evening. And so we had to put a system in place by Monday to decide what we're going to do. And our original plan was to hang tight, continue with the mask mandate because we were not named in the lawsuit. But come Monday morning, we had more conversations with attorneys. My entire weekend was spent, back and forth with discussions with our school board and attorneys. So we tried to hold firm with it, just feeling like I didn't want to switch back and forth with kids, because I feel like them being caught in the political situation that I feel like we're caught in is just not good for them. But come Monday morning, it was very clear we were not going to be able to enforce the mandate. It just wasn't going to happen. And so we changed course. And that's part of how this thing has worked. Everybody's got to be flexible. And luckily our community, met us with patience and grace. And so, starting that Tuesday of the morning after it was announced, we were mask optional, and that's where we've been since. So we've had no issues. It's been great. And our COVID numbers are actually pretty low right now too. So kind of like what we're seeing throughout the county. So far, so good is how I describe it. And so, we're pushing forward with mask optional, and I'll wait to see what happens today. But like I said, I think it's going to be tough to put this one back in.
Dr. David Mauser, Superintendent of Tri-Valley Schools, my guest on the phone for this morning. Dr. Mauser, as you talk about, having a tough time reversing course, what's your opinion on whatever the appellate courts comes out with? And I think, obviously if they side with this Sangamon County judge and the schools and people of Illinois, there's not going to be much to decide. But let's say they side with the governor and his appeal, and they say nope, the governor's well within his rights and this mandate stands and all of that. How do you handle that? And from a legality standpoint, what types of challenges do you face there? How about those things?
Well, I think it's all, at that point, it's about liability. It's about managing that risk. And so, step one is you contact, your school attorneys and try to determine where you are in terms of the risk associated. But realistically, when you have 500 schools that have gone mask optional, I'm saying 500 school districts. And again, that's an article that I read. I'm not going to be able to cite that data, but that's a lot of schools. And so I feel like at this point, at some point there's got to be an out. And regardless of this decision today, I think the writing's on the wall. I believe that what we'll end up seeing is that mask mandate will go away regardless. We already know the indoor mask mandate is going to be lifted, February 28th. So, kids can go to wrestling tournaments today. Kids can go to restaurants. They can go all over the place without masks on. And it's, when you look at February 28th and moving forward, I just think it makes sense that everything falls in line. So I would find it hard to backtrack on the decision that we're in right now. I would think that would be a very difficult one. And I think our board would probably feel the same way, but I'm not going to speak for them. That's a decision that they'll have to make, and we'll see what happens today.
For sure. So Dr. Mauser, as you talk about moving forward, beyond this year, I think a lot of people understand the fact that you've got election seasons coming up in the middle of the summer. And then of course the primary in the summer, you've got the general election in the fall. With all of that in mind, at least from my perspective, I venture a guess you're going to have a hard time telling schools and families, hey, you're going to have to mask for at least another year or another, semester or something of that nature. What do you foresee going into the new school year for 22 and 23? And obviously you'll be in a different district, but I still think your opinion holds some value, given, just given your experience with this.
Yeah, I expect to be back to normal in that sense. I just don't think it's realistic, assuming the pandemic doesn't take a, massive turn or direction that we're not expecting. I think that, we need to move back into normalcy, and that's what our kids need. I think that we were talking last night at our board meeting. Our kids have done pretty well academically, and there's places where there's some really serious academic achievement gaps. And certainly we see social and emotional situations with kids manifesting now too. And so it's time to get back to normal. And that's what every administrator wants. No administrator wants to try to hold this line and have people upset. And a lot of it's misdirected anger. We recognize that. But no, I expect next year to be a normal year. That's my plan. And I'm sticking to it, Seth.
Very good. Very good. How about the transition of your leadership position to and forgive me, I'm blanking on your predecessor's name coming in, but how about that transition and him being up to date with all of these happenings, and how much are you communicating with him about what's happening here?
Yeah, so I'm going to be over in District 87 in Bloomington next year. Really excited about that. Dr. Barry Riley has been wonderful in helping me transition into that space, as has their administrative team. Our new superintendent is Mr. Ben Durgis. He's currently our high school principal, and so he's been working with me to transition. And so, really, as a smaller school right now at Tri-Valley, we've got 1,100 students. And so a lot of the decisions we make in terms of an administrative group are made collectively. And so all of our principals are involved in a lot of these decisions. And I've never tried to, operate in a vacuum. And so when there's decisions to be made that are district level or policy or, related to things that may be of a political nature, he's been involved. He's going to be ready. We just hired a new high school principal last night. That is Frank Arnolds. Frank Arnolds he was a teacher at Tri-Valley for 7 years, and he's been an assistant principal over at Central Catholic, and then it's Olympia for 6 years since then. So he's going to be our new high school principal. So we've checked that box and allowed all of us to kind of move into positions, and I think it's going to be good. The transitions are going to be great.
Sure. Well, I tell you what, let's talk about some of those things. Get away from COVID conversation and talk about the actual happenings in the hallways and the building itself. And Dr. Mauser, in the meantime, where do folks go to keep up with all things happening with Tri-Valley Schools? I'm sure you'll be keeping folks updated on the status of your wrestlers that are over in Champaign today. Again, where do they go to keep up with that and all the happenings in your district?
Well, certainly you can jump on our Facebook page. We've got a Tri-Valley Facebook page. It's great to follow. You can also go to our website, just trivalley3.org.
Dr. David Mauser, Superintendent of Tri-Valley Schools, is my guest on the phone for this morning. The WHOW Morning Show streams live to our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can check it all out it's all brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. And again, check us out on Facebook Live and YouTube. More with Dr. David Mauser of Tri-Valley Schools on the way on the WHOW Morning Show.
CEO Paul Skowron here from Warner Hospital and Health Services in Clinton. Preventative health care protects you from infections, whether COVID, the flu, or other respiratory ailments. Schedule your appointment now by clicking our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
When it comes to fire and water restoration, ServPro of Piatt, DeWitt counties can make your emergency or disaster like it never even happened. Find out all the services they provide by clicking their icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
This is John Carter, Chief of Police in Monticello. As a law enforcement officer, I've seen the impact that depression and suicide have on people. Many times, those contemplating suicide endure considerable suffering and distress. But there is help. If you feel depressed or lonely, there are many resources to help you. Call a trusted relative, friend, or minister, or call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline toll-free at 800-273-TALK. That's 800-273-TALK. All of us are here to help.
If you're looking for local hunting and fishing information, then join us for Central Illinois Outdoors with me, Jared White, Sundays at 8 a.m. here on WHOW. Every weekend, we'll offer detailed local fishing reports from professional guides. We'll swap stories with local celebrity sportsmen, and I'll invite you to share your stories as well. Central Illinois Outdoors with Jared White, every Sunday morning at 8 on all WHOW platforms and on demand at CentralIllinoisOutdoors.com. Brought to you by Bob Ridings in Pana and the Clinton, Illinois Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau.
Let's swing open the farm gate together every day on WHOW. I'm Stu Ellis, your host of the long-running agriculture feature called The Farm Gate. I bring the latest news and information on where agriculture is and where it's going to WHOW Ag listeners several times a day. From tariffs to treaties, from the Board of Trade to the running board on your truck, I cover Central Illinois agriculture every day on The Farm Gate. Hear it all on WHOW's many platforms, on the radio or online. Join me, Stu Ellis, for the Farm Gate.
Tell Amazon Alexa, play WHOW Radio to hear the morning show and all our programming right there on your Amazon Echo.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. And again, the WHOW Morning Show streams live to Facebook and YouTube, and it's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Dr. David Mauser is the superintendent of Tri-Valley Schools and our guest on the phone for this morning. Dr. Mauser, let's talk about the teacher shortage. I know this is something you and I catch up on rather frequently, and it's just an issue that is not really remedying itself. It continues to be a problem. What's going on? What are you finding here lately? What are the challenges with this teacher shortage?
It's absolutely a problem, and I think this is like the sound the alarm moment. I mean, we're in a situation where when I started as an administrator years ago, if we had a third grade position open, it wasn't uncommon for us to see between 80 and 100 applications for that job. Today we may get somewhere between 3 and 10, just kind of depending on the area. We have a 6th grade math and science position open right now. We have 1 applicant. And we are literally right outside of Bloomington Normal, where you've got arguably one of the best teaching universities, in the area, right, and in the Midwest. And so this is a challenge. And so for all districts that are posting positions, the candidate pool is just there's just not a lot of teachers out there, not a lot of young people looking to get into the profession. People have gotten tired over the last few years. People have taken early retirement. People are so it's tough. It really is. And so, we talk about the factors that go into that. I think the last couple of years have been really challenging for educators. I think the charged up political nature of the situations that we're all in have not been helpful to teachers. Obviously, that's part of it. I think the teacher prep programs and what they have to do to be able to get certified in various areas, that's something that needs to change to make it more flexible so that people can get into the profession. But we're definitely seeing it right now. It's real. And when you talk about like the western side of the state, or maybe places that are a little further removed from Bloomington Normal or areas like Champaign, you're really struggling to find staff. And so, yeah, we have to holistically look at this problem and try to figure out what we're going to do to remedy it, so we make sure we have quality people in the classrooms.
So what is being done? I've got a suggestion I'd like to make, but I want to hear from you first. What is being done about this, from whether it's from the school level, whether it's from the State Board of Education level, or the legislative level? What are we doing about it to this point?
Well, I think a lot of what a lot of schools are trying to do is to just remove red tape for teachers. And I talk about this all the time with our teachers. I think we need to create an environment and a culture, where they feel supported and protected from arguably some of the nonsense that goes on, in terms of kind of how we operate at times. And so for me, it's about clearing the path so teachers can focus on the child in front of them. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but, I talk to our teachers, like, let's not worry about, test scores, like state test scores. Let's not get stressed about those things. Let's focus on, the needs of the kids in front of you in your classroom. And when you do those things, the rest takes care of itself. And as administrators, we're the ones that need to take the, kind of shield them from some of the stuff that goes on, and the other thing I think that needs to be done, and it has been in some ways, is the certification process. The state is starting to loosen up a little bit to allow, teachers to be certified in various areas, to be able to teach. And, that's part of it. I mean, it's silly that a teacher can teach 6th grade, but not 8th grade, as an example, and those are the kind of the things that need to be changed and made a little bit easier depending on content area. But what's your suggestion, Seth? I'm anxious to hear it.
Well, I want to throw this at you, and it's something that's going to take time, because this is my theory. We have as a state, and I don't know if this is an across the nation thing, but as Illinois has really made it tough for teachers to do their jobs with all the mandates and all the things they have to do, and all these things. I think that's one aspect of it. But I also think, you mentioned teachers are getting burned out and they're leaving, and you've seen that, obviously that has exacerbated itself the last couple of years with COVID. But I think the pressure on teachers from families and parents, a lot of students anymore, just a blatant disregard of respect towards their teachers and things of that nature. I think we need to shift how we treat our teachers, how we respect them. The fact that it is not an easy job to be a teacher, and we need to respect that they are working hard. They're doing their best. You may not always like the things they're doing or the grades they give your kids, but that's just my opinion. What do you think about those two things, Dr. Mauser? And I recognize those two things are going to take a lot of time.
Well, I mean, I think that number one, if I were in the studio with you, I'd give you a big high five right now there, Seth. That's what we do, I agree with you completely. I mean, this is, a lot of it is just, it really is about, and when you look at why teachers leave, I mean, if you really look at that research, typically it's not about salary or about those types of issues. It's typically about whether or not people feel supported in their school and community. And also by their administration. And so, if we want great schools as communities, we need to make sure that we are treating teachers with respect, right? Giving them the benefit of the doubt, and working with teachers collectively to be able to serve the needs of our kids. So I agree with everything you've just said. And, it's just, how do you go about doing that? I think that's a slow process. And I think part of it is getting back to normal, right? I mean, taking away the political nature and the charged up situations that we're in right now so that we can focus on teaching, learning, and giving kids a great extracurricular experience so they become well-rounded kids that have had all these opportunities that they've missed out on,
Yeah.
And that's why back to the beginning of this conversation today. That's why I'm so excited to be over here in Champaign to watch some kids do what they love to do and, getting a normal school experience. That's what this is about.
Dr. Mauser, it's always great to get your perspective and your insight. Thank you so much for your time on what is going to be a busy day for you, sir, and best of luck to your son and the kids of Tri-Valley at the wrestling tournament today.
Thank you very much. You have a great day. I appreciate it.
You do the same. Dr. David Mauser, again, superintendent of Tri-Valley Schools, my guest on the phone. Network news on the way. The morning show streaming live to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Network news is now.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington.